I didn't dig my board deep enough into the snow. And so instead of slowing down, I think I sped up a little bit. And when I tried to lean forward to grab the snow, I just grabbed the air. And so
Oh, wow.
in that moment, I said, oh, shoot, closed my eyes and just waited for impact. And then I ended up crashing into trees and I landed like in a sideways fetal position. And so it's so dumb though. Like I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was like, man, wouldn't that be funny if like you couldn't move your legs?
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Mediocre Dads podcast, where being mediocre is a choice and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. I'm your host, Queon. I go by Q, and on this episode, I am talking to a fellow veteran, a fellow member of the service. While he was in the Air Force, I could tell you guys that's okay. We forgive them for joining the wrong branch. Jokingly, they joined the right branch. The rest of us joined the ones that just would take us. That's what it boils down to for us. But I think it's going to be a really awesome conversation because, you know, when you talk to someone who has a shared experience of such as the military, these conversations are a lot easier to have because we can say certain things and we understand each other. The conversation is really easy flowing. This is the first time we've met each other, but after a while, it just seems like we've been friends for 10 plus years because we have a shared experience of having to put the uniform on and what that means and what that represents. But why that is not why he's here. While that's a big part of why he's here, that's not why he's here. I came across his Instagram channel and where he's doing 100 pull-ups a day, which, I love doing pull-ups, y'all, but 100 a day, I'm gonna tell you right now, I do a Murph. I'm not doing pull-ups for at least another 3 weeks after that. Right. So I cannot imagine doing 100 pull-ups a day. I'm a pretty fit dude, but he's doing 100 pull-ups a day and it's a reference to suicide or veteran suicide, but don't let me spoil it. I'm gonna let him get more detail and explain it. But without further ado, we have Auston Duncan on the show. Auston, can you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Auston Duncan. And I served in the Air Force for 10 years. I did suffer a spinal cord injury. That's what got me out of the military. Went down the dark little path, but after a year and a half, we started rebuilding. And I'm originally from Washington State. And now I'm currently in Colorado.
That's awesome, man. Hey, so I guess let's start there, right? So you were in the Air Force and you suffered a spinal injury, and I see the a couple videos up on your Instagram right now. Do you mind telling us what happened and what led to that injury?
Yeah, it was. So there's a lot of mountains out here in Colorado, right? And one in particular is called Keystone. And so I got stationed out here in 21 and met some people out here, got our guys. And when the winter came, we decided to go snowboarding. I'd been snowboarding one time when I was like 10. So it was basically my first time. And we get to the mountain and the bunny slope's closed. So my buddy said, hey man, like, just go on the green slope. Like it's a green slope, so it's not that crazy. So like, okay, man, I trust you. I don't know. Bit the snow a lot and then finally started getting the hang of it. Man, I don't know if you've ever been snowboarding or skiing.
Yep.
But those moments where you're just gliding, I was like, I understand now why people snowboard and ski. It's like it's an experience and a view that you can't really put into words.
It's surreal.
I don't know.
It's a surreal view where you're looking at where you feel like you're like, this is what true beauty looks like. So have you're in Colorado, so have you been to Telluride before? It's
No, I haven't been out there.
So it's the southern part of Colorado, but they have this amazing ski resort. It's a more fancier area out there, to be honest. But I went out to Telluride for Christmas in 2015 with my wife's family, and we were skiing and snowboarding. And I tell you, we got to the top of this mountain, and I'm terrible at these winter sports. But you got to this top of this mountain, man. You sit there and you just, like you said, you're sitting there and you kind of look, and you're just like, first off, I'm on top of a mountain right now. That's one. Number two, like look at look at the snow, the trees, look at everything that's just around you. It's the feeling of like, hey, I want to be, I love nature, but like this is like true beauty, right? And like where there's nothing comparable to it. There's no view comparable to it. You can't put it on your as your screensaver and be like, oh yeah, that's such a beautiful scene. You're like, yeah, I remember that, but like being there in that moment, appreciating that moment, that's what makes it special. So I totally got what you mean. Totally got what you mean there. That's awesome, man. Let me
Yeah, man.
so you've only been first and foremost the green slope. While it's supposed to be the easy slope, let's just be honest. When it comes to when you're in Colorado snowboarding or doing any winter sport, green is like the equivalent to like yeah, it's their easiest slope, but like let's just be honest. It's not an easy. It's not generally not one of those easy slopes. I'm not gonna lie to you. Green is
God,
still like you're like yo, like this is supposed to be easy. I wonder what hard looks like. Like the black
right.
slopes. Oh my goodness, people over here doing tricks. I'm like, nah, man, y'all have way too much time on your hands to do that. So, gosh,
No, I'm with you, man. That's something that I've heard a few times. They're like, you can't really compare green slopes in Colorado to other mountains in different states, and I was like, well, I'll take your word for it because it was my first time and my first run of the day.
oh
But
jeez,
yeah, man. So basically, man, my attention went off from, you know, controlling the board and getting the hang of it, the scenery, and we were going down a hill. My buddy, he stayed with me. There was a group of us, but they all went ahead. They've been snowboarding for a
mm,
while, and there was a turn, and he stopped backwards. And so in my mind, I was like, "Oh, that looks awesome. I got to stop backwards too." And so, so
I gotta
we
try
get
that thing. Got it.
right, right. I was like, "Man, I've been trying it a little bit. I think I got it down now." And I get all the way to the bottom of the hill. He's on the corner, and right when I dig or I turn, I didn't dig my board deep enough into the snow. And so instead of slowing down, I think I sped up a little bit. And when I tried to lean forward to grab the snow, I just grabbed the air. And so
Oh wow.
in that moment, I said, "Oh shoot," closed my eyes and just waited for impact. And then I ended up crashing into trees and I landed like in a sideways fetal position. And yeah, so it's so dumb though. Like I don't know. My thing is I like to joke around, I like to troll a little bit here and there, like give people with some clever things, see if they catch
Yeah.
it. And I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was like, man, wouldn't that be funny if like you couldn't move your legs? And then
Like
yeah,
making a bet in your head. I bet you $5 you can't move your legs.
right, right, man. Like it's in the movies, like, oh man, and so yeah, man. So I tried to move my legs and I couldn't, and I was like, shoot. And so, but this when that happened though, man, this is how I know even though the next year and a half, like, God wasn't I didn't really allow God to be in my life. In that moment, though, that was, like, the solidifier that I knew it was like he'd confirmed time and time and again that he was real, but it was this moment for me that was like, "Dang, you need no more proof."
Yeah.
As soon as I realized I couldn't move my legs, man, I closed my eyes because I felt that anxiety shoot up, and, in big bold letters, I just saw the word calm
Yeah.
and it was just blaring in my face. And so from that point on moving forward, I was able to stay calm and yeah, it was bad. I mean, I broke a couple ribs, punctured a lung, so my breathing was
Wow.
off and stuff. And but when they finally pulled me off out of the trees, it took like six people. I went blind for like 15 minutes. And
Wow.
that's this is because they said that I was treading the line between going into shock and being conscious, and they're like, "We don't have the equipment up here if you go into shock, so you gotta just keep talking to us so you stay awake." And I was like, "Well, that's easy enough." And that's kind of why I attributed back to seeing the word calm because I was like, I know my mind was not like, "Hey, bro, relax." My mind was
Yeah.
like, "My life's over." And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah, man. And so, when ER went to rehab and stuff, and yeah, had my dark moment for that year and a half, and then rebuilt back up, and that's kind of where the pull-ups came into play. That's where it's part of the factor.
Yeah. Well, so real quick. So you said you had your dark time and rehabilitation going through that, but going through anything like that, and where you have to you have to retrain your body to learn some of the simple mechanics of doing some of the simplest things that we've gotten accustomed to, that are honestly that we have abused, right? Something as simple as picking up your phone, or right, bending over and picking up a phone, or I don't know, like being able to just stand there and without any pain. Something as simple as that. You now have to retrain your body to do some of those simplest things. And so for you, what was that? What, I guess, really, what was that moment like? Because obviously there's some days where you're like, okay, I'm making progress. And I say obviously because I can only imagine, right? But is it some days you'll feel like you're making progress, and the other days you're like, I'm never gonna walk ever again. Like this is just gonna be me forever for the rest of my life. So I guess for you, were there feelings like that, or were it different feelings of like, it was just optimism, like, hey, I can get through this?
So, I've always been an optimistic person. I've always believed in optimism, but that kinda got shot down when I was in the ER. The
Hmm.
first day I was in there, man, lo and behold, the doctor that was on duty was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, right? And the first words he says to me, bro, he walks up to me and says, "Well, I hope you didn't wanna do 20."
Wow.
Right, I was like, "What the f," and I'm over here on morphine trying to press the button because 'cause I'm like, I'm dying over here, and he says that to me, and I'm like, "You don't know who I am, man," but that was a seed that was planted, and I would say but yeah, there was definitely a big back and forth. When I went to Craig Hospital, the rehab facility,
Hmm.
that was kinda where I got my spark of, like, "Okay, like, I gotta do this, I can do this," and that was only because, like, man, the first day I rolled into the PT room, and I just saw everybody in there. Craig Hospital has a multitude of different injury levels, so on one floor, you have all TBIs where people are, bedridden all the way to, like, they're walking and they just need a guide with them, and then I was on the floor of the spinal cord injury, so it was from full quadriplegic to what I am, incomplete paraplegic. But when I went in the physical therapy room, you see all the other patients and, man, them getting after it. I'm not really too much of, like, an emotional, like, breakdown kinda guy, even though I
Hmm.
believe in it, right? It's like, man, if you get overwhelmed with it, let it out, and, that was the first time I almost, like, publicly lost it, just seeing everybody getting after it, and I was like, "Dang, okay, like, they're in worse situations than me, and they're still fighting. Yeah, I have no choice. I got no choice," and so,
Yeah.
they pushed me hard, man. They said because I was an incomplete paraplegic and that I still had, like, some muscle in my legs, and I get that to deadlifting, man. I used to that was my favorite lift. They were like, "Because you have muscle mass, that's, like, the hardest step for incomplete paraplegics to get back in order to move to the next phase, which would be walking." And so they were able to, like, expedite me working towards walking, but it's not, like, as crazy as you think. Like, one of my final tests was walking up a flight of 10 stairs and walking back down. Like, that was my test.
Yeah.
And so but, like, from that test all the way to the beginning, I mean, I started out using a little ball, and putting it around my waist like that, right? Like, for mobility function, and then, yeah, there was a whole bunch of different workouts and stuff, but reality hit when I came home because it felt like a dream being at the hospital. There was a private chef on each floor, the nurses, the staff, everybody was, like, super supportive. But then I get home and it's just me by
Yeah.
myself in my condo, and that's kinda where I was like, "Dang, this is life." Like, to cook some eggs
Hmm.
takes maybe 5, 10 minutes, right? Like, for me, with that in that current state, because I left with a walker and a back brace, man, that it would take me easily 20, 25 minutes just to do that, like, bending down, right, trying to get the
Hmm.
stuff, and I was like, "Yo, this is not it." So long story short, with the food, I definitely picked up a door dashing habit, which I'm still breaking to this day, but I've gotten
I
a
love
lot
that.
better, man. DoorDash that's my
I
weakness
love
right
that.
there, man. Is
That's awesome. Look,
um,
look, I'm totally for it. Look, you deserved it. You know what I mean? You deserved it. 20 minutes to make some eggs. I'm not gonna lie, you deserve it, man.
it was tough, man, but it was like, I was, like, shooting myself in the foot without realizing it because, like, my leadership, man, they were so supportive, like,
Mhm.
super support like, they were like, "Man, we'll come by, drop off food, like, make homemade food for you and all this stuff,"
Yeah.
and in my mind, I'm like, "I don't want your pity. I don't want that."
Yeah. No, yeah. Yeah. That
So
feel
I
you did you I guess because so you were still in, of course, during that time, still in the Air Force, but was it you were I guess you were in kind of just doing the rehabilitation, and then was it then they'll process you out after, after you're complete, if you will?
yes, so the first so 22, majority of 22, I didn't report in. I was on a convalescent, and,
Oh, okay, got it.
so I was in physical therapy, like, 4, sometimes 5 times a week, and then the physical therapy, regular therapy, right? And then just making sure I'm following up with the clinic and stuff on base. That was a good chunk, and then I went to 2 psych wards. One was residency, the other one was, intensive outpatient, IOP.
Mhm.
That was, so that was pretty much 22, but see, man, like, that freedom when you're in that, like, feeling that hopelessness set in,
Yeah.
that was, like, the most dangerous part for me because it was like I had free time. I didn't have to go to work, so it was like, "What do we wanna do?" And I went ahead and picked up a little gambling addiction, you know what I mean? And then on
Mhm.
top of that, like, with alcoholism, right, like,
Yeah.
without actually doing the questionnaires, I think there's a higher percentage of alcoholics in the military than what we think, you know what I'm saying? Like
No, absolutely, man. No, there it 100% is. I can tell you I was one of them. I fell victim to the consuming alcohol as if it was just water. And I told myself that, because I only do it on the weekends, I don't have a problem. And God, I tell people that the Lord works in mysterious ways, right? And I say that because I genuinely believe it. Because honestly, a lot of people know my story, but this is part of my story. But I got in trouble because I failed a drug test for Delta 8, which has THC in it, right? And when I failed that test, and I got, I was going through the process getting my Article 15. I had to go to Sud C, with the substance abuse program, and part of it, excuse me, the main part of it is a lot of their people therefore are for alcohol. Now, a lot of people didn't know at the time that had addiction to alcohol. And because I had that addiction, when I was going through that program, I actually was able to, realize or come to the grips with, like, I do have a problem with alcohol. I didn't have a problem with the Delta 8, the THC, because it was a one time thing. But the real issue that I was struggling with was how much alcohol I was drinking, and so that part changed my life. But it's so real is that we in the military, it goes overlooked because it's almost like people don't want to come to grips with it, or they don't want to recognize or acknowledge that the problem's there, because then that would mean that we have a bigger problem in the military than we realize, or then we want to acknowledge. So I can only imagine, man, like, being in that depths of just truthfully, and I'm not trying to put you back there, but of despair, of just like, what's the future like? You ask that question to yourself. I'm sure you ask that question to yourself. It's like, what does the future look like for me? What does that really mean? What is that supposed to be? And you mentioned being in those dark times. What, I guess, how did you pull yourself out of those dark times, right? Because we talk about, hey, you could be in there, but people see you today, they see you on Instagram doing your pull-ups, doing, smiling, happy, here you now, laughing and joking, and it's fun. But like, what was the thing that helped pull you out of that air, that hole almost, of like, hey, I don't like this person of who I am, and I need to change. So what really pulled you out of that and help allowed you to become the person you are today?
uh, couple things, man. Just
No, look, I love it. I
well,
love it. Whatever it is, go for it.
all right. So in order to continue that year and a half of escapism, right,
Mhm.
required a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, man, and it's so backwards because when I got to Colorado, I was like, "Oh, yep," like, I was in Europe before, so coming back to the States, I'm like, "Okay, yep, like, we're gonna take life more seriously now. Like, we're in
Mhm.
the States, let's do it right." And so, I mean, my credit score wasn't crazy, but it was like a 710, 715, right? And so, after that action happened that same year in November, on Veterans Day, November 11th, and
Mm.
so freaking, when that had happened, man, in order to keep fueling my escapism, I was applying for new credit cards, taking out personal loans, right? And that was going towards alcohol, gambling, and then going out to eat whenever I could and,
Mhm.
trying to cover everybody because 'cause I'm like, "Who cares?" But eventually, right, all of that went down, like, or all of that went away because now I'm over 100 grand in debt. And
Wow.
that made me realize, like, oh, I should probably do something about this, right? And I didn't know what I needed to do or what I could do. Um, and that's kind of when I went back to prayer. Like,
Mhm.
I've never been like a super heavy churchgoer before I joined the military, I was, but once I did, I fell
Yeah.
off from attending service. But the power of prayer, I've always believed in that. And so I started to pray a little bit, and then I came across this dude, David Goggins. Man, I had no idea who he was. And I just typed in like, oh, Goggins video, whatever. And it was a compilation video of him, Jocko, and another guy named Eric Thomas. I'm not sure if you're
Yep.
familiar.
ET. Yep.
But ET, yes, sir. Hip hop preacher. You already know. Yes. And dude, so in January of 23, I cut off social media. I didn't talk to anybody on the phone. Maybe once a week I talked to my brother and maybe my sister, maybe.
Wow.
But for 21 days straight, man, I kid you not, from the moment I woke up until I went to bed, I would play that video on repeat. It was, I mean, at least 20 times a day. And so from that point on that day one of listening to it, I decided like, well, if I don't know what to do, but I do know the gym, so I guess I should start there. And so I was doing 2 a days for those 21 days, but I could only last for like 10 to 15 minutes. Like doing like the flat dumbbell chest press, I could only do the fins for like 6 reps. Like that's where I
Yeah.
started. And so didn't know what it would do. It felt like electricity was shooting down my spine every time I repped, and so I was like, "Okay, well, let's just run this for a while, see what happens." I was like, "I don't know if it's because it's like the neurons are like too disrupted or too broken that like it's just messing me up, or am I breaking through scar tissue?" Turns out I was breaking through scar tissue, and so once I realized that, the pain that I felt every time I went to the gym, I wouldn't say I started enjoying it, but in my mind, I was like, "Oh, we found a wall.
Yeah.
This isn't life. This is just a wall. Let's see
Mhm.
if we can break through it every time we go back. Let's see how much more we can go." And then from then on, man, yeah, the improvements, they started coming, and my mind started getting curious again about life, about the world, and yeah, and so that was kinda like the starting point for my rebuild. Goggins, God, and
That's
life,
awesome.
man, you know?
That it's extraordinary to hear, right? Because I think for those of us who haven't experienced something as traumatic as that in our lives, where because physically and mentally, or a mixture of both, or separately, or on their own, whether it's mentally or physically, it's extraordinary to see how amazing the mind and the body can rejuvenate itself and want to be back and come back in even bigger and better than before, right? Because a lot of us can, envision ourselves say, well, if that were me, I would have not have been able to get through that. Or, I don't know if I would have made it through there. I would have done this, I would have done that. A lot of people would unfortunately would have said, hey, and I don't say this to be crass, I say this to be honest, but a lot of people, in situations would have said, hey, I would have much rather ate a bullet than having to experience that and having to fight through and through that pain, because it did is it what is it even worth it? You know what I mean? And the worth it part, I think, really comes to moments like now, moments like these, where we're having this conversation and you're looking back at this, and again, it's still there, it still exists. You still have the scars, you still have the wounds, physically and mentally, but it's and now it's I when I see you, when I see you hear you talk about it, it's more of a, I wouldn't be the person I am today without those scars. And if I wasn't this person I am today, would I have had the impact, or could I have the impact that I have on people's lives today that I did back then without going through this thing? Now, it's not to say, hey, you're ready to, go through another, hey, go down another mountain and
What's
let me hit
next?
another tree. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's just the reality of when we experience something and we're able to get through it, in the sense of like almost come out of it as a different person and a new person. It's like, hey, like, okay, if I can get through that, I, I can only imagine if life throws something at me, someone punched me in the mouth right now, I'd be like, man, you know what I've been through? That that's like Thank you. I needed that. You know,
Oh,
thank
man.
you. That's the hardest part of my day right now is you punching me in the mouth. Thank you. You know what I
Jeez.
mean? And I love, I love it. Again, I see you, I see the joy, the peace, the calmness in you. And honestly, it's a light that is just, it's, I never would have imagined, right? You know, when seeing talking to you without talking to you, like, oh my gosh, like that's what this video is talking about. Like I'm looking at the video right now, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. I just thought maybe it was just like some accident. He just recovered whatever it is. But like that is to be the person you are now. Again, I commend you. I think it's awesome. I think it's phenomenal. And this for me, this is a true testament of who God is, and it because we will look at situations and we will say, oh, God's not real, he doesn't exist, right? And then not only till we get to the end we're like, oh, no, 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 God does exist. Because again, you go through it and you're like, there's no, the only reasonable explanation I can give you is God. That's the only reasonable explanation I can give you, is it was God. Like, why, that one day where I said this was going to be it and it didn't happen, and I'm still here. That was God. There's no other way to put it, and that was God. And I think that's amazing. I think it's phenomenal for you. So I guess, get into the meat and potatoes of it all. But like, you started this thing where you're doing 100 pull-ups a day, right? You're just talking about you getting back to the gym, doing, unfortunately I will be able the last 10 to 15 minutes in the beginning, but now you're at this point where you're like, hey, I do 100 pull-ups a day. What really was it, David? Was it David Goggins, or was it something that said, hey, you know what, I'm going to commit to doing this? What made you say, hey, this is the thing that I'm going to hang my, you know, uh, I'm going to commit to? What was it that drove to you say, hey, this is why I'm going to choose this, and why did you choose it?
Man. So I'm introverted by nature. I just, if we got to put it on, we put it on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's like, here we are, But and so my brother actually, he came out to visit me the weekend before I started doing it. Or no, he was there the first day I did it, and he was like, "Man, like, why don't you start doing something, like, like do something on social media that's like kind of consistent every day and all this stuff." And came out with the idea for 100 pull-ups every day. Originally, I was going to do it for veterans mental health specifically.
Hmm.
That was the original intent, but then I thought, like, you know what? Like, I feel like that's too narrow. Why don't I just do it for all men's mental health? And so that kind of came back for the personal side. Man, it really comes back to Craig and then being a part of the Air Force Wounded Warrior program.
Hmm.
You meet a lot of people who are wheelchair bound, and, whether they're complete or incomplete. One of my things for them is like, I don't ever want to take my second chance of being able to walk again for granted. I never want to
Hmm.
do that again. And the accident helped me realize there's a lot that we do take for granted. And so so for my personal side, that's kind of what it was for. But then also, right, like brothers and sisters in arms, active or veteran, it's for them as well. And then basically everybody who the message kind of resonates with it. My whole thing about it is, man, is I've always believed in optimism, and if there's anything I can do moving forward that can almost kind of be just a small beacon of hope for other guys, other men, women, whatever, like that's one of the reasons why I do it. I just think that men's mental health has an interesting view in society now.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like Goggins would be on one end, and then some of society's on another side of a spectrum. And I'm finding what the middle ground looks like. How do
Yeah.
we take things such as Goggins and other hardcore or crazy athletes, Black Mamba, Kobe, all, and combine that with how society is trying to, I guess, help us or make us, force us, whatever, like to view masculinity and how men should be men in society.
Hmm.
And so there's things I agree with, things I don't agree with. Same thing on the other side. There's things I agree with, things I don't agree with. And so I'm like, well, what does the middle ground look like? Something that all of us, if we hear it, whether or not we agree with it, it's like, but it does make sense. I don't like it, but it does make sense. So, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the pull up thing, man.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I like what you said, because you have, I imagine you read "Can't Hurt Me" by David Goggins?
I'm like, 3 pages in, man.
Are
Just
you? Oh,
and
okay.
it's not because I don't wanna read it. It's weird, man. Like, I got to meet him earlier this year, and,
Yeah.
see, my dumb self, I wasn't even wearing the sweatshirt. It was in my car, but I was too nervous. I was like, "Man, if I leave and go to my car and get the sweatshirt, like, he might be gone. I might miss my chance." When in reality, he was chilling up there for almost an hour. So, I definitely could have done it, but, I would say that, wait, with I like I feel like I understand Goggins in a different way,
Mhm.
and for me, I've listened to the audiobook, but people who I do look up to, I wouldn't say idol because I do not idol him, nor
Yeah.
do I see him as somebody I worship and stuff, but he is definitely somebody that I have a high level of admiration for, and so the way I see it is like if he's been my virtual mentor,
Yeah.
it's not too necessary for me to understand his entire life, but more so of the outcome of what he's been through and
Yeah.
receiving that as mentorship.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's awesome because the reason I asked is I listened to the audiobook of Can't Hurt Me, and it changed my life. And when I listened to when I got it and I was listening to it, I wasn't in a place really that where I was like, hey, I need to hear someone like David Goggins yelling in my ear, telling me, I ain't crap and who's going to carry the boats. But it was honestly, it was just one of those things where when I listened to it, I was changed, right? The one of my favorite things from his book is the accountability mirror. And for those who don't know what that is David Goggins would every day write on a mirror, his goal. He write his goals on his mirror. So when he woke up and went to the bathroom, he would look at himself in the mirror and look at those goals, and it would remind him like, hey, this is what you're doing. You're doing this. Your goal is this, right? So you can't forget these goals, because when you forget them, then you become complacent. When you become complacent, you're not doing anything. You're not being better. You're not improving yourself. And I read that and I reread that over and over, or re-listened to it. And honestly, I don't have an accountability mirror, but anytime, someone talks about David Goggins, I tell people accountability mirror. If you really want to change your life, that is one of the simplest tools that he gave. And I don't know if he knows this or not, but like that's a golden nugget forever, right? Of just saying, hey,
Yes.
you want something, you want to accomplish something, you have a goal in mind, you feel like, hey, you're not accomplishing what you have in mind, what you put on earth to do. Put your goals on your mirror when you wake up, and I guarantee you, when you wake up every morning and remind yourself of like, hey, I told myself I was going to run a marathon by December 1st. Okay, what have I done to prepare for doing that? Nothing? Oh, shoot. I'm running this afternoon when I get home from work. You know what I mean? And it just reminds you, where it forces you to say, I have to do something. I can't do any. I can't just let this goal go by and be like, oh, I just wasn't able to meet my goal because I didn't have time. No, I chose not to do it. But you did say something that was spot on. I think is spot on here. It's the side of it where David Goggins is an extreme. It can be an extreme version, right, of masculinity and getting through things, because he'll tell you, hey, if you're not running 12 miles every day, what's going on with you? Are you weak? And you're like, hold on, sir. I understand where you're at. I'm not running 12 miles every day, though. As much as I love running, I'm not running 12 miles every day. That being said, there is an extreme version where it just helps you get started with doing something as simple as saying, I'm going to do 50 push-ups a day. I'm going to do 50 pull-ups a day. I'm going to do 100 pull-ups a day. And that is my commitment to myself, to say I need to constantly be better and improve myself, no matter what. No matter if I know it's going to hurt, I know it's going to suck. I know there's days I'm not going to feel like I'm up for it, but it doesn't matter. I owe it not only to myself, but to those men out there who think that they don't have any value to this world, and that they're like, hey, I wish somebody would just would tell me that, hey, I matter. And something as simple as saying, hey man, I'm doing 100 pulls a day because for someone like you do matter. And I can't, if you're seeing this, I don't need you to do 100 pull-ups, but just know that I see you and I've been you, and you don't have to be that rut anymore. You don't have to be the person that tells yourself that you're worthless over and over and over. There's so much more to life, I promise, outside of just feeling worthless, and you can change your life with something simple. It's the simplest thing you can change your life. And I know, don't get me wrong, when I say that, it's easier said than done, right? It's one of those things that's a lot easier said than done. You can change your life today, right? It's a lot easier said than done, but still
Right.
there are small things that we could do to change our lives every day. And I think that's impactful. I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful to see again, to hear you talk about, why you do what you do. I'm gonna your videos. I'm gonna share a lot of your videos after shortly after this. But I think a lot of people do need to see it. A lot of people do need to say, hey, look, there's this guy who was hurt, like severely hurt, and now he's doing 100 pull-ups a day, bro. How? I want to know more. You know what I mean? And I think it's just it's awesome. It's inspirational, right? And you are more than just doing 100 pull-ups a day, right? You were talking, but we were talking beforehand. You're in school, right? You're pursuing your degree, and I think these little things that amount to big things can go overlooked in what your life is and what you cumulative of your life, and say, hey, I'm making a change, I'm making an impact. It's for those out there on the other side of the screen, but it's ultimately for me as well, as a person who's had to go through something. So I love that. I think it's very inspirational. I wanted to ask you a question, and this is kind of shifting gears per se, kind of staying on the same theme, but shifting gears here. Um, you know, when you're in a moment like that, moments like this, when this happened and all this, where and you mentioned you started praying, and you were saying, hey, I gotta, I know prayer works, I know prayer is effective. But was there for you, was it, hey, I'm getting back into, I'm going to completely get back into Christ in in life, and change my life? Or was this a slow, hey, like I'll read my Bible every once in a while because I need that inspiration? Or what was that like for you?
So, yeah, I would say more gradual, more
Mm,
so than a fast track, kind of like going all in,
mm,
in my faith. But one of the blessings I've always had, man, growing up, me and my sister, who's like closest age to me, she's 1 year older than me. We were raised Catholics, and then her and I converted to non-denominational Christianity, and that's where she
mm.
met her husband. And
Awesome.
so all throughout the military and even after the accident, whenever I would talk to her, she would always bring up God, whether it was through scripture or how scripture connects to the situation, and you know, trying to pluck out lessons and things to just throw my way to be like, hey, like here's some stuff, like just dwell on it a
Hmm.
little bit. And so I would say she was kind of she's always been a bit of a reinforcer for me, and so I'm not saying like that was my excuse, but
No, absolutely. I got you.
yeah, but it's definitely something that's a work in progress. I've
Yeah.
gone to service a couple times, man, but I don't know what the accident did to me, but I kinda trip out a little bit, when I'm, like, especially if it's a big church, when there's a lot of people and stuff, my mind's always like, "There's too many people here, something's gonna go down." And
Yeah.
so and at that point, it's, like, hard for me to even listen to the pastor, and I'm more focused on the crowd and just keeping my head on a swivel, like, I don't know if something's gonna go down now. And so church hasn't been the easiest thing for me to attend, but
Mm.
with that being said, man, I mean, if it's difficult, that's probably an indicator I need to start pushing through.
Well, here's what I'll tell you, man. Right, because a lot of people will get it when they get back into faith, will wrap their themselves around this idea that if going to church, reading my Bible, praying, well, that makes me a Christian. That's what determines me as a Christian, a believer, and that's what's gonna these actions are gonna what change my life. When in reality, it's repentance and acknowledgement of Christ dying on the cross and being resurrected 3 days later. That's where it's, I mean, that's where the start is, the belief. And when you have that belief, when it's real, genuine belief of like, hey, I don't have anything else, Lord. I don't have. I'm a man who's gone through things, and I don't know what else to do. I've tried to do it by myself, and I'm stuck. And I'm speaking for myself when I say these things, right? From that in that instance, and it's just that acknowledgement, because that's all that he really wants from us is just acknowledgement. It makes me think of the thief that was on the cross with Jesus. There was two thieves on the cross, and this story, this part in the Bible for me, it lives rent free in my head. It's in Luke 24. But these two thieves are on the cross. One of the thieves says to Jesus, "If you are who you say you are, then bring us down from this cross, and then I'll believe." He wanted a miracle, and then he will believe that he is who he says he is. The other man the other thief, said to that thief, and he said to him, basically called him a fool. He said, "Do you not understand who you're talking, who this man is? This man is guilt or is innocent. we are guilty. We committed a crime. We did wrong. We deserve this. He does not deserve this. Now keep in mind, right? Why this means so much to me is they're having this conversation as Luke's explaining it, and they're still on the cross, right? So they're like, there's pain, they're still in pain, and they're having this conversation. And one man is saying, "Hey, bring us down," obviously, which totally understand, right? Hey, get us down here, and then I believe, type thing, right? And the other man is saying, "Fool, do you not understand who this man is?" And he says to him, the thief that was basically telling the other man, the other thief, he was wrong. He says to Jesus, he says, "All I ask is, is you remember me when you enter your kingdom." And Jesus' response to him is such a beautiful and easy response. Again, they're on the cross as they're having this full blown conversation. And he says to him, know today you'll be in paradise with me and my Father. And that is all he needed to hear, to know, to say, hey, this man is who he says he is. Right. I'll take it a step further that I think I want people to look at in here when it comes to really believing and being a believer in Christ and how he can change our life. Right. Is those two thieves on the cross are an example of what it is to be a Christian and what it is not to be a Christian today, right? More of a fence rider, even, right? Those two men serve as a prime examples of, you have people who want to believe in Christ, who say, like, hey, I recognize that this Christ fella is something different. He means something in the faith, right? But it's I don't I haven't seen, there's nothing, I haven't seen him do something really inspirational in my life for me to say, like, oh yeah, there is really for me to believe. So it's like, hey, do something, prove to me that you are who you say you are, and then I'll believe, right? A lot of people who are fence riders or even Christians now will, that's where their faith is based off of, like, hey, prove to me that you are God, and then I'll believe that you are in fact God, and then you have my complete fealty and I believe in you, right? While there's others who where this is, and this is where Jesus really wants us to be, where God wants us to be, is acknowledging, say, hey, you don't have to prove to me that you are who you say you are. I can see the things, the life that you lived. I can see the example that you set. I envision you on the cross, as me, Queon, on the cross, sitting there. Look, imagine you did that for me and everyone in the world. You did that for us. And you didn't have to, right? You didn't have to, didn't want to, truthfully. I mean, not to say he didn't want to die for us, but he didn't want to go on the cross. He praying in Yosemite, he prayed to the Father, to God, three times. And by the time in the last prayer, he said, hey, if this is what you want me to do, this is what I'll do. Gosh, I put my phone on do not disturb. Sorry. This is what you want me to do, and I'll take it and I'll bear that. And he did. And that's the wonderful part of that. It's in the moments of the cross, and why it's so important, how so many things are happening in that moment, where I tell you, man, it's faith is gradual. It's going to be a gradual thing. It's going to grow. And when you have him in your life, in your heart, when you really accept him in your heart, those things that people tell you that, oh, this is what makes you a Christian, going to church, reading your Bible, those things become things that you want to do because you want a connection with him. You want a relationship with him because he has come, he's poured into your heart, and you said, I need to do these things because I need my Father. I need to be connected with him. And that's really when I tell you, man, I don't mean to get all preachy, but life changes. It changes for real, where you mentioned the word calm, where you saw the word calm in your head. And the word for me that I have been searching for my entire life, and I have it now, and I can tell you, even with what I'm going through, is peace. That's just, I don't mean necessarily like peace on the outside, all these things. I'm talking inner peace, true peace, where I can say, like, yeah, there's a lot going on, but I'm good. I'm okay. And he's giving that to me. And I can't get, I'm so thankful for that, that I know that when I tried to do things by myself, I'd fail every single time. It actually got me more in trouble, and so it's a beautiful thing. But I wanted to, there was a verse that really stuck out to me as we were talking, and it's honestly, they're my favorite verses. But it's those who follow me, they know I bring this verse up all the time. But it's James 1, verse 5, verse 2 to 4 through 4. It says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. And I as I've gone through things in my life, I look at these trials and different things in my life of like the Lord experienced 10 times worse than what I experienced. And I'm over here, save me, or, this and that, whatever the case might be. When it's like, who am I? And I don't say that to mean light, but I say that to just to, for compare it, to put in introspective for me of just realizing that I need I look at it as, again, as great joy to be like, you know what? If he considers me worthy enough to be tested, for my faith to be tested, for some me to go through something, that means for my faith to be tested, he's considered me worthy enough to test me and make sure that my faith is genuine. And I look at that as like, I don't deserve that. But I love, but he knows my name. He knows me. Shoot. Okay. Shoot. I'll do anything. And I love it, man. It's awesome. And that's how I look at all these things in life. And, it's, yeah, these things, life's hard. Yeah, things are complicated. We're going to go through things, but the people that we become, and when the Lord transforms us, and when we come out of these things, you people look at us and they're like, "How did you become the person you are today?" Not even realizing you had to go through, an accident where you had to relearn to rewalk again, and lifting weights again. It's they're like they look at you and they would never know that, right? But they see a light in you where they're like, how is this dude so freaking positive, man? Like, it almost can be annoying how positive he is, but
Yeah,
how is he so
yeah,
positive? Like you're like, gosh dang it, man. Like, I'm envious of that, but damn, like, chill out with the optimism, man. Like, gosh dang, be upset about something. And you're like, nah, like I look at this as another opportunity that I've been blessed with. So that's awesome, man. I love that. I love that. And I think it's amazing. And I tell you that, um, I'll finish with this right here, but um, faith is like a mustard seed. We've heard that before. The parable in Matthew, when talking about the faith as big as a mustard seed, the size of a mustard seed. Something that what I didn't know, and I learned earlier this year, is the mustard seed is, obviously it's a ridiculously small seed, right? But actually, when you plant it and it grows to be one of the largest trees that you've ever seen in your life. And when I was taught this, I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus had the answer for everything, right? Because when he talked about faith as big as a mustard seed, he was explaining how our faith over time will grow. And when you plant the seed, you plant the mustard seed. Yeah, it was started off this big, right? Where you can barely see it. But then you continue to water it. You continue to water it and it grows and grows. Years later, right? It becomes the largest tree that you've ever seen. That is a representation of what our faith is actually supposed to be when we believers. It grows. And keep in mind, yeah, you're in the beginning stages. It's me and my co-host every Thursday we do a live episode of the Bible study, and we talk about this all the time. Crawl, walk, run. We are a lot of us still going to be in that crawl phase, and that's okay. That's okay. But our faith will grow and grow and grow and grow. When as it grows more, you start to see a change. People start to see a change in your life, and you're like, I'm not really seeing any changes, but everybody's telling me like, oh my gosh, I don't. You're different now. I don't know what it is. You're different. You're like, I guess, and it's amazing, and that's the amazing thing about faith, man. Is it's meant to be grown. You just got to continue watering, and the more you water it, the more it will grow, and the more that your life will be changed, and where you will start to see things more as how God sees things. Where you're like, oh, I've been looking at this life thing the wrong the entire way. Not saying you have. I've been looking at it from a lens of with foggy glasses, and now they're clearing up, and I can actually see the beauty of around me. It's a perfect example is when you were talking about when you're standing on top of the mountain and you're looking at it, and it's this view of just like this is the earth that we walk on. How beautiful this is. You know what I mean? That is the
yeah,
realization of when your glasses have cleared up, and you're like, this is the picture that I've been trying to see this entire time, and it's been amazing.
yeah, 100%, man. And I'd say too, man, like, I guess just to get a little deeper into the story, just a hint on it, right? Like
Yeah.
growing up as a kid until I hit about junior high, that's when I met my brother. He's my best friend, but I call him, brother at
Yeah.
this point. We'd known each other since kindergarten. Growing up until I hit that point, I didn't really have any friends. So I
Mhm.
was kind of my own best friend. But looking back, I think I was able to in middle school, my nickname was Smiley Kid. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's yeah, yeah. But with that being said, man, it was I knew, yeah, at a young age, even being Catholic before I switched to non-denominational, I knew God, he had to have been there. Like he was there with me and stuff. And
Mhm.
that accident was kind of the boiling point for me as far as being able to hold everything in and not expressing myself the way that I would like to have and all that stuff. And that's when everything came out. But during that, yeah, that year and a half, I definitely forgot about God. And then one day, just like you said, yeah, it was I decided to water that seed a little bit more, man. And he said, "All right, let me show you what you could do." I said, "Roger
Yeah,
that."
that's
Yeah, yeah, man.
awesome. I love that, man. I really do. I really do. I know we got a few. We got some a little bit more time here, but beforehand, and guys, this is part of the conversation. We're going to totally shift gears here, but I do think he asked me a question beforehand, and I think it's important that we do talk about this because it's one of those things that I think so many people struggle with. But you asked me the question. We were talking about you know where men were struggling with getting on the internet, and y'all know what I'm talking about. You're talking about we're watching porn, and I'm not talking pointed here, this is not him, guys, what we're talking about here, but it just in general, right? Because the reality is, my let's just call it my devil, if you will, was alcohol, but for some other people it's a sexual sin of watching porn and all these things, right? And when a culture in a world where we have access to OnlyFans, Pornhub, insert porn website here, whatever the case might things, different kinks of whatever things people might want to do on the internet, but in particular now where OnlyFans women are glorified as as well, they had to do it, they but they're making thousands or thousands of dollars and all they have to do is get online for for 10 minutes and do what they're going to do, and not realizing what they're doing to themselves, but in particular the men who are willing to get on there and pay for those things. It's tough, it's tough because you also go on the internet, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier, right? When you get on the internet, you have this the definition of masculinity to be so fluid and so different for everybody, right? Where David Goggins will define, in a sense, define masculinity as being someone who's capable, who's fit, who knows how to work through difficult things and not just live in that place of just life's hard, I want to give up, right? And I'm sure there's a lot more to how you would define it, but when you look at it from that lens, you can see that's the glimpse of basically what David Goggins would define. I would say David Goggins defines as masculinity. But then you get the other side of it. You got Andrew Tate or Myron Gaines, right? The From Fresh and Fit podcast, where they'll tell you that masculinity is being able to sleep with as many women as you want, as you can. And basically they do talk about the fitness side of things and all that, but their biggest thing is being able to, and this is from my lens, of course, but being able to be a big player and show that women that you are a man, you can get anybody. And so your confidence is 100% or whatever the case might be. And this has polluted what the real definition of masculinity is. And I think the perfect reference of what masculinity is and how we can get to true masculinity, not needing feel the things that wanted to seek pornography, OnlyFans, or whatever the case might be. The perfect example of this is King David, because think about there's so many stories about David, and one in particular stands out to me in this moment. But the one in particular is when David was going through when the tabernacle had finally been brought back to the city of David, where he was living, where his kingdom was at the time. The tabernacle had finally been made it back to the city of David, and it's being brought through the city, and they're going to go put it in the tent or whatnot. David, the king of Israel, is out dancing, you know, in making essentially almost making himself look like a fool, dancing, crying in excitement because the Lord is dwelling within the Lord's presence, or the tabernacle is his presence is now within the city of David, which means they can feel the Lord's presence at all times. And he's so excited about it because he knows that the only reason he's King David, the only reason he is the man who he is, because the Lord was with him and chose him to be the next king after Saul, right? And It's amazing, right? Because one of David's first wife will later the day, whatever, would bring him in, brought him to the side and said, a king shouldn't dance in front of their subjects like that, making yourself look foolish and making yourself look unkinglike. And David's response essentially was, "It's for God. I don't care. I don't care what they think of me. I care what God thinks of me. What are these people who are my subjects? Yeah, great. The only reason I have the authority that I have is because of God. The only reason I have the things that I have the things I have, the things I'm able to do is because of God. So you want me to, and again, this is me going off the rails a little bit of what the actual conversation was, but the whole point of the purpose of it was being able to say, like, David recognized that humans, so I don't care what they see of me. What I want them to see, what I hope they would get out of it, versus what she got out of that was, look at how joyful David is to worship his God. We need to be just like that. How joyful David is to worship his God, and so that is the true, real version of masculinity. Because on the other side of that, David was still the man when he was under Saul, who was known to kill 10,000s of men. People knew when they went to war with David, they did not only go to war with David, they went to war with his God. And when David had his God with him, the enemies fled because they were like, listen, that's the same dude who was a kid who approached Goliath with a stick and a slingshot. And he told Goliath, you don't war with me, you war against my God. And he sent me. And he was like, and Goliath, still chalking out the side of his neck, ended up getting his head cut off by the same kid who walked up to him with a stick and a slingshot and got his head cut off by a sword. And the moment that happened, what did the Philistines do? They ran away because they said, this is the guy that you sent me to face my God? Are you kidding me? That is true masculinity to me. When we want to look at true masculinity, David is a prime example, because he was a man who understood when it's time for war, we'll go to war, but understand you're not going against me. You're going against my God. So good luck. Good luck to y'all, but you're not going against me. I could die tomorrow. You still have my God to deal with, right? But he can also, on the flip side, come to shred his clothes and come before God in complete humility and say, God, I need you. I've sinned. Please help me. Help me. I need you. I don't know what to do. I'm in this place. These people are chasing me. My son's trying to kill me. Saul's trying to kill me. Please, I need you. It was like he can do all of those things. And that is the real definition of masculinity. And that, to me, is when men realize, when we're able to get to that point of our lives where, hey, we can be the men who cry. We can be the men who are sensitive to these in situations, but we can also be, when it's time for war, when it's time for battle, we can also be the men who are stoic and say, hey, I'm not gonna let you do that to me. And that to me is a prime example. When you get to that, all these other things, you look at all these other things, porn, OnlyFans, you're like, no, I have more value than that. My God has told me what my value is. You don't tell me what my value is. My God tells me my value, and with him telling me what my value is, I see you online, I'm like, so look, I got a beautiful wife and I got 3 beautiful kids. We all know how kids are made, y'all. Let me tell you right now, I love my wife. Love my wife. That I don't need that. The people on the internet, that's fake. That's fake. People on the internet. I don't care. I don't care. So when it to me, and again, I'm different. I totally understand. But for the man out there who's who wants to get engaged, wants to have a wife, wants to start a family, I'm telling you, your wife will value and respect you when you love yourself. As man, it talks about in for what part it is in, but in particular, right? It says, "Wives, submit to your husbands." But what the call for husbands is, for husbands to love your wife as Christ loved the church and was willing to die for the church, right? But then it also goes on to say to love your wife as much as you love yourself, right? Because a man who loves himself can essentially love his wife to the same, to that extreme as well. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but my point is, when you love yourself, the thing you're willing to do for your wife and say, hello, because I love myself, I see the value in her. I'm gonna love her so much. Your life's changed. I'm telling y'all, it's amazing how God is. My intent was not to get so preachy per se, but I think that the Lord is amazing, and any opportunity I can to speak on it, I will. And because he really does change our lives. And people will say, like, oh, well, that's fake, or you're doing it for show. And it's like, nah, it's the realization that set in, of like, what's really valuable in life. And at the end of the day, this is flesh. This is we're like dust. He says, dust I from dust I brought you, to dust you'll return. We're like grass, or flowers, one here one moment and gone the next. Like when it's that's how what this life is, how temporary this life is. And it's not about this life, it's about the next life, the inheritance that we're promised as long as we have faith in him, because we're saved through grace by faith. So that's oh man, sorry, I went on a long tangent. I love it, but that's
Man, you helped me with a little bit of a Sunday scripture right here, man. So tomorrow morning, you know what I mean? I'm
absolutely,
gonna
man. No, I'm
get
glad I could
into
help.
some of the things that you highlighted, man. Yeah, I think it's what you were saying, King David. Yeah, that's powerful. And then the other verses that you went over too. Definitely gonna check those out. I was curious though, man, on your side. So something me and my lady that we kind of made very clear in the beginning was, open communication.
Mhm.
And even if something doesn't sit right with you, like if you're not ready to talk about it, just know that like we need to be ready for each other in order to communicate through things, and that complimenting each other is more important than being competitive towards each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so with that, man, I wonder, so one of my psych classes, we actually just went over little parts of marriage. And I want to get your opinion on this, man. Because it makes sense in my mind. I was like, yeah, this makes sense, but I'm also not a dad, so I don't know. So it was saying that when children enter the family dynamic or the marriage, typically the mother will take kind of the managerial role in regards to parenting. In my mind, I was like, that would make sense, but I don't know. What's your take on that?
I tell you, that is 100% true. What's funny is my kids, my oldest especially, she'll know. She'll be like, "Dad, can I go outside?" And I'll be like, "Did you ask your mom?" Because I don't know the answer. Like, here's the craziest part: I don't know the answer, right? And when I say don't know the answer, I don't know the right answer, because I don't know if her mom has told her something that she's supposed to be doing. She can't go outside, whatever the case might be. I don't know. So I don't want to get in trouble, because she's just as much of my boss as she is my daughter's boss, and it's funny because when our wives, when they become mothers, their instincts to really take charge of not only of our kids, but also of us, of their husbands, and say, hey, my wife is big on having a schedule and all that. So like, she tells me what's going on. I give you a prime example, guys. I have a calendar. People they come on the show and have a calendar. It was my wife who told me yesterday, hey, you're doing your show tomorrow, right? And I said, yeah, what time am I doing that at? And she pulled, because she has access to my calendar. I share my calendar. She's like, it says 11:45. I said, tomorrow 11:45, that's what I'm doing. And so, and she is in a sense, she has taken on that manager role, but and it's not because I don't want to, and I'm not leaving my home. And but it's really what it boils down to is, I think we, as men and women, we have these innate things about us, and part of it for women especially is I don't want to sound like, say, they have to be control freaks, but there's this thing especially that I've seen with my wife, where I respect, like, hey, my wife knows a lot more of what's going on, right, than I do. I have my roles and I have responsibilities as dad and as a husband, but I lean heavily on my wife for a lot of things that goes on day to day. I can tell you, my wife pays all the bills, for example, right? So I tell people, I was like, listen, my wife pays all the bills. So if God forbid something happened to my wife, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, the only reason I'm not gonna have electricity is because I didn't know how to pay the electric bill. I didn't know I don't know who the company is. I do know it's Javette who my electric company is, but I don't know the login information. I don't know how, like, how do I pay my water bill? I don't know. My wife pays that, right? And it's just one of the responsibilities that she has taken on, and that she gladly takes it on, and she is serving, as you mentioned, in that managerial role, and she does it willingly, because not because she's like, well, if I don't do it, someone's not going to do it. It's for my wife in particular. I know she enjoys the being. That's her way of serving, not only me and my kids, but the Lord. That's her way of being a servant leader, where it's like, hey, these things are going to be done, and I'm going to take them on. I'm willing to take them on to do those things, because I know my husband loves me, because it's something as simple as paying the bills, but it's like, hey, it's like, oh, thanks, hey, thanks, babe, for paying the bills. I wouldn't done it without you. I don't know what I would have done without you. And she feels value in that. She feels love in that. And that's ultimately, I think, where for a lot of relationships, what they when they're especially then they've been together for a long time, such as me and my wife, you take on certain roles within your marriage. And it's just kind of like, yep, hey, that's what my wife does. She does it because I told her she had to do it, but it was like, hey, this is the role she wanted to take on, whether we talked about it or not. And this is the role that I'm going to take on, whether we talked about it or not. Some of the things, it's like, hey, you're gonna do those things. I'm not gonna do those things, right? Like she knows, like it's like, hey, she's like, hey, I'm not going outside to do lawn stuff. I'm not doing that. I won't. She's like, I won't do that. You're gonna do that. Yep, totally got it. Totally take that on. That's my responsibility. As soon as I get off here, matter of fact, I got 3 holes I got to fill in the backyard because of my dogs and my kids. So like that's me. That's
Man,
my responsibility that I got to take on, and I'm willing to do that because my wife, she does so much not only for me but for my kids and for the home. I'm sure you heard the expression that, but a woman makes it the home, makes it a home. You know what I mean? I think that's the wrong expression. I will live in a house, but she makes it a home, right? Because truthfully, that's what they do. They give us as men a purpose to say, hey, I want to strive to be better. I need to be better, not only for myself, but for my wife who relies on me, who says, hey, who are we have determined I'm going to go to work every day. So I can't afford to mouth off to my boss and lose my job because she relies on me to come home with money so we can put food on the table, so we can pay the bills and do what we need to do, right? And then when you put kids into the mix, oh my goodness, especially as having daughters. I have 2 daughters and 1 son, but I had 2 daughters first. Let me tell you, when you have daughters, you want to be the best example you can for them, because when they grow up and they become older and get their boyfriends and have husbands and have their own kids, the example that they're going to pull from is you. They're going to say, hey, this is what my dad did. This is who my dad was and how I saw my dad operate. This is what I expect of you to do something similar, or what I'm used to. Now, obviously, you're not my dad, but still, my dad set the tone. He set the example. He set the standard. So either you're going to meet that standard and go above and beyond, or we're going to have issues, right? So now that me, for having daughters and having to set that standard, now there's even a higher expectation of like, I can't, some days I want to be lazy, but it's like, no, I can't be lazy, because I don't want my daughters to say, well, my dad was lazy, so I understand lazy husbands. Absolutely not. Nope, absolutely not. Will not do that. Will not do that. So
man,
it's a big deal,
that's
man. Like
awesome to hear.
being a parent is a big deal in that lot of space. But yes, to answer your question, yes, mothers do tend to take on the manager role. Like I said, my kids will say, "Ask me," and I'll be like, hey, "You better ask your mom, because I don't know the answer." I don't want to get in trouble either,
Man,
so go ask your mom.
I hear that, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. I love that, man. That whole response is, man, so you're just giving me stuff that I'm just gonna be dwelling on, letting marinate, see what pops up out of that, and for, future sake of things to either look out for, brace, prepare myself for, or to be open and fluid with. Yeah,
Absolutely, man.
yeah.
Like I tell you, man, you um you're on the right. From what I hear, you're on the right track, right? And you and your lady, I know, the question, and I'll surmise with this. The question that I asked my father-in-law, when I was asking him to take his daughter in marriage, right? And I was 18 when I asked him. We've been married for 11 years. I met my wife when I was in 7th grade. She was in 6th grade. And we've been dating, or we started dating in 2011. We've been together for a very, very long time, right? And so one of the questions that I asked him, I said, "Hey, how do you?" I've argued with her before, right? When we were dating, we've argued, but I said, when you become married and you don't have the ability just to walk away and say, "I'm not going to talk to you for a few days," right? I said, how did you handle arguments when that are like, hey, this is a monumental argument that we're having, and it's like, is this the argument that's going to be the end all big all the big all end of all arguments that's going to end our relationship or our marriage? And his answer to me was, he goes, well, any argument can be that. Any argument you have could be the argument that ends your marriage, because but what really boils down to is, how much work are you willing to put in to that person that you said that you love? And she's my daughter. You claim to love her. I hope you're willing to do that. If you have to argue every day with her, well then, shoot, you got to argue every day. But obviously, some chill out periods. But still, he was the point that he was making was, it boils down to, if you really love that person, you're willing to come to the grips and say, drop your pride, drop your ego, and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Right. I was so focused on wanting to be right and not wanting to see your perspective that I was wrong for that. And vice versa as well. Right. For my wife, it's like, yeah, hey, look, I wanted to be right more than I actually wanted to hear what you had to say. And we come together because it's like, we have to fight for each other. We have to fight for each other, and fight to want to be with each other, fight to want to have a relationship, a connection with each other, and grow with each other, because this is the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. And after, when we're old and gray and we're sitting there, we can be able to look back and say, gosh, dang, remember when we were 17, sneaking out to the during the girls basketball game, sneaking out to the car and making out in the back seat, and being kids, guys, geez, be adults here, okay? But we're gonna remember that, and it's just gonna be like moments that make us happy, or even raising our kids, where moments that we see, we can just reflect and see our kids and be like, gosh, look how much they've grown. So it's amazing, man. Being a parent, being a husband's amazing, and you grow so much when you grow with that person. The idea of just throwing it all away because you were angry or you were upset, it seems absurd. It's amazing. Look, y'all, we've been going for an hour 15 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Austin, man, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on, guys. I know that Quan was doing a lot of talking. I apologize, but it's amazing to me when we can have a guest on that we can have these conversations, because this is big. This is these conversations, they matter. They mean something. And I know for you, you're not married yet and you don't have kids yet, but I know that later on when you do, there will be times, the things that people have said to you that will come to your mind and be like, oh, okay, I got that nugget. No, I remember this conversation. Okay, that's what he was feeling when he was describing that moment. Okay, this is the time that I need to do this, right? Because we don't have a manual when you become a husband, when you become a dad. There's no manual that they give you and they say, hey, here you go, here's your manual, make sure you read it, and then you'll be successful and you'll be good to go, right? You're like, there's no manual for this. Everyone's different. Our wives are different, our kids are different. So but when you have those little nuggets, it help you to really become the person, the father, the husband you want to be when that time comes. But again, Austin, I appreciate you coming on. Hey man, where can people find you if they want to know more about Austin, want to know more about what you're doing and your story? Where's the best place for people to go to find you?
Probably just Instagram. It's a toast to today. Everything's spelled out. Just giving a
Okay.
toast to today, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but yeah, and thank you, Q man, for having me on here. It was awesome meeting you. And when or if you make your way out to Colorado, let me know, man, because it would be awesome to be able to shake your hand in person.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Look, I'll tell you when we get off the recording. I'll tell you I got a little something. I'll drop a little nugget for you. But hey, y'all, it's been an amazing episode. Austin, I appreciate you coming on, guys. Go and check him out. He's on Instagram. His links will be in the description below for you to go check him out. And guys, as usual, being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all we got. Mediocre Dad's out, guys.